Briarwood Manor stood silent and foreboding at the end of a long, winding road. Jane, a young historian, arrived just as the sun was setting. She had heard stories about the mansion's dark past and was determined to uncover the truth. As she approached the front door, the wind howled and the trees whispered ominously. Jane pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. The interior was dark and filled with the smell of dust and decay. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but dilapidated foyer. The once beautiful chandeliers hung broken, and the walls were lined with tattered wallpaper. In the main hallway, Jane's flashlight beam fell on a large portrait of a stern-looking man. The eyes seemed to follow her as she moved. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew through the hallway, and the portrait's expression changed to one of anger. Jane discovered a hidden door behind a bookshelf in the library. She pushed it open to find a small, secret room. The room was filled with old, dusty books and strange artifacts. In the center of the room was a table with a large, leather-bound journal. She opened it and began to read. The journal belonged to William Briarwood, the original owner of the manor. It detailed dark rituals and a pact with a malevolent spirit to gain wealth and power. The final entry mentioned a curse that would doom anyone who lived in the house. Jane realized the manor was haunted by the spirits of those sacrificed in the rituals. As Jane read the journal, she heard whispers around her. Ghostly figures of the sacrificed appeared, their faces twisted in agony. They warned her to leave before it was too late. The temperature in the room dropped, and Jane could see her breath. She knew she had to get out. Rushing to leave, Jane encountered the malevolent spirit of William Briarwood himself. He appeared at the top of the grand staircase, his eyes glowing with an evil light. He blocked her path, his voice echoing through the manor, threatening her for disturbing his peace. Jane ran through the dark hallways, the spirit close behind her. She burst through the front door and into the night. The manor seemed to sigh as she left, the wind howling around her. She didn't stop running until she reached her car. As she drove away, she could still feel the spirit's eyes on her. Safe in her apartment, Jane reviewed the footage she had captured. The images of the spirits and the journal entries were clear evidence of the haunting. She knew she had to share the story, but a part of her feared the curse might follow her. She felt a cold draft and shivered, wondering if she was truly safe.
In the dead of night, a group of friends, Sarah, Mark, and Emily, arrive at the imposing Ravenswood Manor, a sprawling mansion nestled deep within the forest. The moon casts an eerie glow over the overgrown grounds as they approach the decrepit mansion, drawn by tales of its haunted past. As they step through the creaking front door, the group is enveloped by darkness. The air is thick with dust, and the floorboards groan beneath their feet. Sarah lights a lantern, casting flickering shadows on the walls as they explore the abandoned foyer. As they venture further into the mansion, they are greeted by the sound of whispers echoing through the hallways. The walls seem to close in around them, and Sarah's lantern flickers ominously. They exchange nervous glances, but press on, determined to uncover the secrets of Ravenswood Manor. In the heart of the mansion, they discover a forgotten library, its shelves lined with dusty tomes and ancient manuscripts. Emily's heart races as she picks up a weathered book, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and arcane rituals. Suddenly, a cold breeze fills the room, and the books on the shelves begin to sway as if moved by unseen hands. As they explore further, they come across a portrait hanging on the wall, a grim-faced man with piercing eyes that seem to follow their every move. Mark shudders as he gazes into the man's cold, lifeless eyes, and Sarah quickly averts her gaze, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. As night falls, the mansion comes alive with ghostly apparitions and otherworldly sounds. Emily's heart races as she catches a glimpse of a figure moving in the shadows, its form shifting and indistinct. She cries out in fear, and the others rush to her side, their lanterns casting shaky light on the empty hallway. As the night wears on, the group's sanity begins to fray. They are plagued by visions and nightmares, their minds filled with images of death and despair. Sarah clutches her head in agony as she hears voices whispering in the darkness, urging her to embrace the madness that lurks within Ravenswood Manor. In a desperate bid to escape the madness that grips them, the group confronts the malevolent force that haunts Ravenswood Manor. With trembling hands, they perform a ritual to banish the darkness, their voices raised in a desperate plea for salvation. And as the first light of dawn breaks through the windows, the mansion shudders and groans, the darkness receding into the shadows from whence it came.
On a dark, stormy night, 4 friends, Tom, Sarah, Mike, and Emma, stood at the gates of Blackwood Manor. The old house was rumored to be haunted, but they were determined to spend the night there as a dare. They pushed open the heavy front door, which groaned loudly. Inside, the house was dark and filled with dust. Old furniture covered in white sheets and cobwebs in every corner made the place look abandoned and eerie. In the living room, they saw a grand piano in the corner and a large broken chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Suddenly, the piano played a single, eerie note, causing everyone to jump in fright. They decided to explore the upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked under their weight. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. A cold breeze made them shiver, and they heard faint whispering. They opened one door and found a room filled with old, dusty toys. The air was freezing, and a rocking chair in the corner started moving by itself. They heard a child's laughter echoing around them. Panicking, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even colder and darker. They found strange symbols on the walls and old, broken furniture. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. She stared at them with hollow eyes and whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Blackwood Manor. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying, and agreed to never speak of it again.
On a chilly autumn night, 4 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lisa, stood at the gate of Ravenswood Manor. The old house was rumored to be haunted, but they were determined to spend the night inside to prove their bravery. They pushed open the creaky front door and stepped into the foyer. The air was musty, and the only light came from their flashlights. Dust-covered furniture and cobwebs filled the room, adding to the eerie atmosphere. They moved into the living room, where a grand piano stood in one corner, and an old tattered sofa sat under a large broken window. Suddenly, the piano played a single, eerie note, making everyone jump. They cautiously climbed the creaky staircase to the second floor. The hallway was long and dark, with several closed doors. A cold breeze made them shiver, and they heard faint, eerie whispers. They opened one door and found an old nursery. Dusty toys were scattered around, and a rocking chair in the corner started moving on its own. They heard a child's laughter echoing through the room. Panicking, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even darker and colder. Strange symbols were drawn on the walls, and old furniture was strewn around. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. Her hollow eyes stared at them as she whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Ravenswood Manor. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and agreed never to speak of it again.
Sarah and Jake arrive at the secluded cabin they rented for a weekend getaway. The cabin is nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by tall trees. As they unpack, Sarah notices an old photograph tucked away in a drawer. She feels a chill but shrugs it off. That night, strange occurrences begin. Sarah hears footsteps outside the cabin and sees shadows moving in the darkness. She wakes Jake, but he dismisses it as her imagination. Sarah feels uneasy, sensing an eerie presence looming around the cabin. The next day, Sarah explores the cabin's attic and finds an old journal hidden beneath a dusty trunk. The journal belongs to a previous tenant, detailing bizarre encounters with an unknown entity. Sarah's heart races as she reads about the cabin's dark past. As night falls again, the paranormal activity escalates. Sarah and Jake hear whispers echoing through the cabin and feel a cold draft despite the fireplace burning brightly. Sarah catches glimpses of a shadowy figure lurking in the corners, sending shivers down her spine. Driven by fear, Sarah confronts the entity, demanding to know its intentions. The air grows heavy as a voice whispers sinister messages, filling Sarah with dread. Jake tries to intervene, but the entity's malevolent presence overwhelms them. With the entity's grip tightening, Sarah and Jake decide to flee the cabin. They race through the forest, their hearts pounding with each step. Behind them, they hear haunting laughter echoing through the trees, fueling their desperation to escape. Even after leaving the cabin, Sarah and Jake can't shake the feeling of being watched. Strange occurrences follow them, reminding them of the entity's lingering presence. They vow never to return to the cursed cabin, haunted by the memories of their terrifying ordeal. Months later, Sarah and Jake still grapple with the trauma of their encounter at the cabin. They seek solace in each other's company, finding comfort in the knowledge that they survived the horrors of the haunted woods. Yet, the memory of the malevolent entity continues to haunt their dreams, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks in the shadows. Sarah and her husband, David, arrive at Silverwood Manor, an old estate they inherited from Sarah's distant relative. The house is imposing, with tall windows and ivy-covered walls. As they unpack, Sarah finds an old, dusty music box in the attic. Intrigued, she decides to keep it. That night, Sarah is awakened by the soft melody of the music box playing on its own. She also hears faint whispers and footsteps. Frightened, she wakes David, but the sounds stop as soon as he is awake. They both dismiss it as the house settling. The next day, Sarah and David find an old journal hidden in a secret compartment of the music box. It belonged to a girl named Eliza who lived in the house a century ago. The journal entries describe Eliza's fear of a dark presence in the house. That night, the whispers and footsteps return, louder and more menacing. Sarah sees a shadowy figure at the foot of her bed. The figure reaches out to her, and she screams, waking David. The figure vanishes, but the air remains cold and heavy. Desperate for answers, Sarah and David contact a local historian. The historian tells them about Eliza's tragic story. She was believed to have been haunted by a malevolent spirit and disappeared mysteriously. Her body was never found. Following the historian's advice, Sarah and David search the basement and find a hidden door behind some old crates. Inside, they discover a small room with old furniture and a large cracked mirror. The room is freezing, and they feel a strong, oppressive presence. Sarah looks into the mirror and sees Eliza's ghost. Eliza silently pleads for help, showing Sarah visions of her past and how the malevolent spirit trapped her in the hidden room. Eliza points to a spot on the floor where her remains are buried. Sarah and David dig at the spot Eliza indicated and find her remains. They perform a simple ritual to lay her spirit to rest. As they finish, Eliza's ghost appears one last time, smiling gratefully before fading away. The air becomes warm and peaceful. With Eliza's spirit at rest, Silverwood Manor feels lighter and more welcoming. The whispers and footsteps stop. Sarah and David decide to stay and restore the manor, feeling a deep connection to its history and to Eliza.
In the heart of Hollow Creek, an abandoned house sits atop a hill, its windows shattered and its doors hanging off their hinges. The locals whisper tales of a family who disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only the echoes of their screams. But when a group of teenagers decides to spend the night in the house, they quickly realize that the rumors were just the beginning of the horrors that await them. As the group of teenagers gathers outside the house, they dare each other to spend the night inside, eager to prove their bravery. With nervous laughter and shaky hands, they push open the creaking door and step inside, their hearts pounding in their chests. Little do they know they're about to come face to face with the horrors that lie within. As the teenagers explore the house, they feel an oppressive presence weighing down on them, a sense of malevolence that seems to seep from the very walls. They hear whispers in the darkness and catch fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corners of their eyes. Fear grips them tight as they realize they're not alone in the house. As the night wears on, the teenagers uncover clues about the house's dark past. A family torn apart by tragedy, their spirits trapped within the walls for eternity. They find old photographs and newspaper clippings, piecing together the story of the family's demise. But as they delve deeper, they awaken something sinister that has been lying dormant for years. As the night progresses, the house comes alive with paranormal activity. Doors slam shut on their own, objects move of their own accord, and ghostly apparitions appear in the darkness. The teenagers huddle together, their screams echoing through the empty halls as they realize they're trapped in a nightmare from which there's no escape. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the teenagers make a final stand against the evil that haunts the house. Armed with makeshift weapons and fierce determination, they confront the ghostly apparitions that roam the halls, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to banish the darkness that lurks within. As dawn breaks, the paranormal activity subsides, and the house falls silent once more. The teenagers emerge from that darkness, battered and bruised but alive. They exchange weary smiles, knowing that they've faced their fears and emerged stronger for it. Though the scars of their ordeal will never fully heal, they take solace in the knowledge that they've conquered the darkness that once threatened to consume them. On a chilly autumn evening, four friends, Mark, Lisa, Danny, and Sophie, arrived at the small, deserted village of Hollow Creek. They had heard rumors of a haunting and wanted to investigate. The village was eerily quiet, with mist curling around the old, decaying buildings. The friends walked through the empty streets, their footsteps echoing. They saw abandoned houses, broken street lamps, and overgrown gardens. As they explored, they noticed strange symbols carved into the doors and walls of the houses. They found an old inn at the center of the village. The door creaked as they pushed it open. Inside, the inn was dark and cold. Dust covered the furniture and a musty smell filled the air. They decided to stay there for the night, hoping to uncover the village's secrets. As night fell, the friends gathered in the main room of the inn. They set up their sleeping bags and lit a small fire in the fireplace. The flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls. They heard faint whispers and creaks, but dismissed them as the old building settling. At midnight, Sophie woke up to a strange noise. She saw a figure standing at the foot of her sleeping bag. She screamed, waking the others. The figure vanished, but the friends could still feel its presence. They huddled together, too scared to sleep. The next morning, they decided to search the inn for clues. In an old chest, they found a diary. It belonged to a girl named Emily who lived in the village decades ago. Her last entry spoke of a dark presence that haunted Hollow Creek, driving the villagers away. As they read the diary, they learned that Emily had tried to summon spirits to help the village, but something went wrong. Instead of help, she had unleashed a malevolent entity. The friends realized that the haunting was real, and they were in grave danger. Suddenly, the room grew cold. The friends could see their breath in the air. The entity appeared before them, a dark, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. It moved towards them, whispering in a language they couldn't understand. Panic set in as they tried to find a way out. Mark found an old key in the diary. Desperate, he used it on a hidden door they hadn't noticed before. The door led to a tunnel beneath the inn. The friends rushed through the tunnel, the entity's whispers echoing behind them. They emerged outside, gasping for breath. The friends didn't stop running until they were far from Hollow Creek. Exhausted and terrified, they vowed never to speak of what happened. As they left, they could still hear the faint whispers of the entity, warning them never to return.
On a dark, windy night, four friends, Tom, Alice, Sam, and Lucy, stood at the entrance of an old abandoned mansion on Hollow Hill. They were dared to spend the night inside the house, which was rumored to be haunted. They pushed open the heavy front door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the house was dark and filled with dust. Old furniture was covered in white sheets, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. They entered the living room, where an old dusty couch sat under a large broken window. A grand piano stood in the corner, its keys covered in dust. Suddenly, the piano played a single eerie note, making them jump. They decided to explore upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked with each step. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. A cold breeze made them shiver as they heard a faint whispering sound. They opened one of the doors and found a room with old children's toys scattered on the floor. The air was freezing, and the rocking chair in the corner started to move on its own. They heard a child's laughter echoing around them. Panicked, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was colder and darker, with a damp smell. They found strange symbols on the walls. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress. She looked at them with hollow eyes and whispered, "Leave this place." Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house. The door slammed shut behind them, and they could still hear the ghostly whispers. They vowed never to return to Hollow Hill. Back at home, the friends sat together, still shaken by their experience. They knew they had encountered something truly terrifying and agreed to never speak of it again.
On a chilly autumn evening, four college friends, Megan, Brian, Laura, and Kevin, stand before the old decrepit house at the edge of town. The house, abandoned for years, is known for its dark past. Kevin challenges the group to spend the night inside. With nervous laughter and a sense of adventure, they agree and push open the creaky gate. The front door groans as it swings open, revealing a dark, musty interior. Dust motes dance in the beams of their flashlights. The smell of mold and decay fills the air. They step inside, the floorboards creaking under their feet, and the door slams shut behind them with a deafening bang. They make their way to the living room, where an old grand piano stands covered in dust. The wallpaper is peeling, and the room is filled with antique furniture draped in white sheets. Brian lifts a sheet to reveal a mirror, and they see a fleeting reflection of a shadowy figure behind them. A cold breeze brushes past them, and they hear a whispering sound, faint but unmistakable. Laura shivers and clutches Brian's arm. They decide to explore further, moving cautiously towards the source of the whispering. In the kitchen, they find old, rusted appliances and broken dishes scattered on the floor. The whispering grows louder, and they see a ghostly figure of a woman in tattered clothes standing by the stove. She disappears as quickly as she appeared, leaving them shaken. They discover a door leading to the basement. Kevin suggests going down, but Megan hesitates. The others convince her, and they descend the creaky stairs, their flashlights barely cutting through the darkness. The air grows colder, and an oppressive feeling surrounds them. In the basement, they find an old wooden table with strange symbols carved into it. A low growling noise fills the room, and they see glowing eyes staring at them from the shadows. Panic sets in, and they scramble back up the stairs, the door slamming shut behind them. Breathless and terrified, they race towards the front door. The house seems to come alive, with doors slamming and ghostly wails echoing through the halls. They struggle to open the front door, finally bursting out into the cool night air. The house falls silent behind them. Outside, they collapse onto the grass, catching their breath. The house looms dark and silent behind them. They vow never to return, each one haunted by the memories of what they saw and heard. The night air is cold, but they feel a sense of relief and safety. Back in their dorms, the friends try to return to normal life. But each night, they are haunted by nightmares of the ghostly woman and the glowing eyes in the basement. The whispers still echo in their minds, reminding them that some horrors can never be forgotten. Greystone Mansion had always been shrouded in mystery in the town of Pine Hill. On a cold, foggy evening, Sarah, an enthusiastic journalist, arrived to investigate the rumors of hauntings for her upcoming article. She parked her car near the gate, feeling a shiver of excitement mixed with dread. The mansion loomed large and foreboding in the mist. Sarah pushed open the heavy wooden door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the mansion was dark and cold, the air thick with dust. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but decayed foyer. Her footsteps echoed ominously as she ventured deeper into the mansion, feeling a growing sense of unease. As Sarah explored the mansion, she felt a sudden chill. She turned and saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving her questioning her sanity. Determined, she continued to the library, where she hoped to find records about the mansion's dark past. In the library, Sarah found rows of old, dusty books. As she searched through them, she heard whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. She discovered an old diary belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lord Greystone. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse placed on the house. Sarah's exploration led her to a room filled with mirrors. As she walked through, her reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following her with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular drew her attention. In it, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. She reached out, but the image disappeared. Sarah discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. She descended the creaky stairs into a dark basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old dusty books on a table. She found a journal detailing dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by its original owner, Lord Greystone. As Sarah read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lord Greystone appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Sarah and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Sarah knew she had to leave immediately. Sarah bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Sarah reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article revealing the dark history of Greystone Mansion. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Lord Greystone's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." She knew the haunting was far from over. Elmwood Manor stood alone, surrounded by tall dead trees. Its windows were dark, and the setting sun cast long, eerie shadows across the overgrown lawn. The sky was a deep orange, adding to the sinister atmosphere. Inside the manor, the foyer was grand but neglected. Dust and cobwebs covered everything, including the old chandelier that hung from the ceiling. A grand staircase led to the upper floors, and debris littered the floor. The living room had a cold fireplace, a dusty rug, and furniture covered in white sheets. Broken windows let in faint light, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The dining room featured a long table covered in a dusty cloth. Chairs were overturned, and cobwebs hung from the chandelier above. The windows were boarded up, making the room feel even more claustrophobic. The kitchen was cluttered with old rusty pots and broken cabinets. An old wooden table sat in the center, covered in dust and cobwebs, adding to the room's decrepit state. The library was filled with old dusty books and cobwebs. A large ornate mirror hung on one wall, and a single candle flickered on a desk, casting unsettling shadows that seemed to move on their own. The bedroom featured a large canopy bed covered in dust. The cracked windows let in moonlight, illuminating the peeling wallpaper. An old wardrobe stood open and empty, adding to the room's eerie stillness. The basement was dark and damp, with stone walls and a dirt floor. Old rusty chains hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The atmosphere was oppressive and filled with an overwhelming sense of dread. A hidden room in the basement was filled with strange artifacts and old books. A large cracked mirror reflected a distorted image, and a single candle flickered on a desk, casting eerie shadows that seemed to shift and move. As dawn broke, Elmwood Manor was bathed in soft, golden light. The shadows receded, but the mansion still looked eerie and abandoned. Birds began to sing, but the air remained heavy with the terror of the night. The haunting was over, but the memories lingered, a testament to the mansion's dark past. Blackwood House stood isolated in the dense forest. Its windows were broken, and the walls were cracked. As dusk set in, the sky turned an eerie orange and purple, casting a sinister glow on the decaying structure. Inside the house, the foyer was dark and filled with dust and cobwebs. An old creaky staircase led up to the second floor, and a broken chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals missing or shattered. The living room was filled with tattered furniture and a cold fireplace. A broken window let in a sliver of moonlight, illuminating the peeling wallpaper and the thick layer of dust that covered everything. The kitchen was a mess of broken cabinets and rusty appliances. A large wooden table in the center was covered in dust and cobwebs, and an old broken stove stood in the corner, untouched for years. The dining room featured a long table with an old tattered tablecloth. The chairs were scattered and overturned, and a single dusty candle sat at the center of the table, unlit and forgotten. The hallway was long and dark, with old creaky floorboards and faded wallpaper. Closed doors lined the hallway, each marked with a different ominous symbol, hinting at the secrets hidden within. The bedroom was dusty and old, with a large canopy bed covered in cobwebs. The curtains were tattered, and moonlight streamed in through a cracked window, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The attic was filled with old, forgotten items covered in dust and cobwebs. A single small window let in a beam of moonlight, illuminating strange old toys scattered on the floor. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The basement was dark and damp, with stone walls and a dirt floor. Old rusty chains hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The sense of dread was palpable, as if the walls themselves whispered secrets. As dawn broke, Blackwood House was bathed in a soft golden light. The forest around it remained dark, but the first rays of the sun illuminated the decaying structure. The night's terror faded, but the house's haunting presence remained, a testament to its cursed history.
It was a dreary afternoon when Sarah, Tom, and their teenage daughter Lily arrived at Eldridge Manor. The old, sprawling mansion stood ominously against the darkening sky, its windows like blank eyes staring back at them. The family had inherited the property from a distant relative, and despite its eerie appearance, they decided to give it a chance. "Wow, this place is huge!" Lily exclaimed, though her excitement was tempered by an uneasy feeling. Tom forced a smile. "Let's make it our home. It just needs a little work." Sarah glanced at the towering structure, feeling a chill run down her spine. "Let's get inside before it gets too dark." Inside, the manor was filled with antique furniture, dusty chandeliers, and creaking wooden floors. As they explored, they discovered a hidden staircase behind an old bookcase. Curiosity got the better of them, and they descended into a dimly lit basement. "This place is like a maze," Tom said, his voice echoing off the walls. Sarah found an old diary on a dusty table. "Look at this," she said, flipping through the pages. "It's from the 1800s. Lily, shining a flashlight around the room, gasped as she saw strange symbols carved into the walls. "What do these mean?" That night, as they settled into their new home, strange things began to happen. Lily's room was the coldest in the house, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Around midnight, she heard whispering voices and saw a shadow moving in the corner of her room. "Mom! Dad!" she screamed, running to their room. Tom and Sarah woke up startled. "What is it, Lily?" Tom asked. "There's something in my room. I heard voices and saw a shadow," Lily said, trembling. Sarah tried to comfort her. "It's just your imagination, honey. This place is old and creepy, but there's nothing to be afraid of." The next day, Sarah delved deeper into the old diary. It belonged to a woman named Eleanor Eldridge, who wrote about the strange occurrences in the manor and her experiments with the occult. She mentioned a mirror in the attic that was the source of the hauntings. "We need to find that mirror," Sarah said, showing the diary to Tom. Tom nodded. "Let's go to the attic." Together, they climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. Amidst the cobwebs and old trunks, they found the mirror, covered with a dusty cloth. "This must be it," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they uncovered the mirror, a cold breeze swept through the attic. The mirror's surface was strangely clear, and as they looked into it, they saw faint images of people moving behind them, ghostly figures trapped within the glass. Sarah gasped. "This is it. This is what's causing everything." Tom placed a hand on her shoulder. "We need to destroy it." But before they could act, the mirror began to glow, and the room filled with an unearthly light. The figures in the mirror became more distinct, reaching out towards them. "We need to get out of here," Tom shouted, pulling Sarah towards the stairs. That night, the hauntings intensified. Doors slammed shut on their own, footsteps echoed in empty hallways, and ghostly apparitions appeared throughout the house. The family realized they had to find a way to end the hauntings for good. "We need to perform a ritual," Sarah said, showing them a passage from the diary. "It's the only way to banish the spirits." Tom gathered the necessary items: candles, salt, and a ceremonial dagger. "Let's do this. We have no other choice." They set up the ritual in the basement, forming a circle with the salt and placing the mirror in the center. The family began the ritual, chanting the incantations from the diary. As they did, the temperature in the room dropped, and the ghostly figures from the mirror began to emerge, swirling around them. "Keep going," Sarah urged, her voice shaking. Tom held the dagger steady, ready for the final part of the ritual. "We're almost there." Lily, clutching her mother's hand, watched in terror as the spirits drew closer, their faces contorted with rage and sorrow. As Tom raised the dagger to complete the ritual, a powerful force knocked him to the ground. The mirror glowed brighter, and a deafening roar filled the room. "No, we can't stop now!" Sarah shouted, helping Tom up. With renewed determination, Tom plunged the dagger into the mirror. The glass shattered, releasing a blinding light and a wave of cold air that knocked them all back. The spirits screamed and dissipated, leaving the room in silence. The temperature began to rise, and the oppressive feeling lifted. "It's over," Tom said, breathing heavily. The next morning, the manor felt different. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and the oppressive atmosphere was gone. The family began packing their things, eager to leave the haunted house behind. "We did it," Lily said, smiling for the first time in days. Sarah nodded. "Let's never speak of this place again." Tom agreed. "We need to move on with our lives." As they drove away from Eldridge Manor, the weight of the past days lifted, and they felt hopeful for the future. Back home, life seemed to return to normal. However, one night, Sarah found a piece of the shattered mirror in her bag. She stared at it, her heart pounding. Suddenly, she heard a familiar whisper and saw a shadow move across the room. "Tom, it's not over," she whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. As the shadow loomed larger, the whisper grew louder, and Sarah realized with horror that the spirits had followed them home. In a forgotten corner of town stands the decrepit remnants of an asylum, a place shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of horror. A group of curious teenagers, led by their daredevil leader, decides to explore the abandoned asylum one fateful night. As they approach, the building looms ominously against the darkened sky, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. With a sense of trepidation, the teenagers push open the rusty gates of the asylum and step inside. The air is thick with dust and the smell of decay, and the sound of their footsteps echoes through the empty halls. As they explore further, they can't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes are following their every move. As the teenagers make their way through the asylum, they encounter a series of long, dark corridors, lined with doors that lead to unknown rooms. The air grows colder with each step, and strange sounds echo through the halls, a soft whisper here, a distant moan there. Goosebumps prickle their skin as they press on, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they explore deeper into the asylum, the teenagers come across the remnants of the facility's dark past, straitjackets strewn across the floor, rusty medical instruments left behind, and graffiti-covered walls adorned with the names of forgotten patients. The air grows heavy with the weight of the asylum's history, and the teenagers can't shake the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. As they delve deeper into the asylum, the teenagers begin to feel the presence of something malevolent lurking in the shadows, a cold chill that seeps into their bones, a sense of dread that hangs heavy in the air. Strange phenomena occur with increasing frequency, doors slamming shut on their own, objects moving of their own accord, and ghostly apparitions appearing out of the darkness. As the malevolent presence grows stronger, the teenagers realize they must find a way out of the asylum before it's too late. They race through the halls, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors as they search for an exit. But the asylum seems to shift and change around them, leading them deeper into its darkened depths. Cornered by the malevolent presence, the teenagers find themselves face to face with the source of the asylum's haunting, a restless spirit trapped within its walls. With nowhere left to run, they must confront the spirit head-on, armed only with their courage and determination. As the spirit looms before them, they steel themselves for a battle against the forces of darkness. With a final, desperate effort, the teenagers manage to banish the restless spirit from the asylum, freeing it from its eternal torment. As the spirit fades away into the darkness, the asylum begins to crumble around them, its walls crumbling to dust as the dawn breaks over the horizon. With a sense of relief and exhaustion, the teenagers emerge from the ruins, knowing that they've faced their fears and emerged victorious. Ravenwood Manor had always been shrouded in mystery and fear. On a cold, misty evening, Alex, a young journalist with a thirst for the unknown, arrived at the manor. The gates were rusty and covered in ivy, and as Alex pushed them open, they creaked ominously. The mansion loomed in the distance, its dark windows staring back like lifeless eyes. Alex pushed open the heavy wooden door, which groaned in protest. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. He turned on his flashlight, revealing a grand but dilapidated foyer. Dust-covered chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and old furniture lay draped in white sheets. His footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space as he ventured deeper inside. As Alex explored the mansion, he felt a sudden chill. Turning around, he saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving his heart racing. Determined to find answers, he made his way to the library, hoping to uncover the mansion's dark past. In the library, Alex found rows of dusty old books. As he searched through them, he heard faint whispers and the sound of pages turning on their own. He discovered an old journal belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lord Ravenwood. The entries spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Alex's exploration led him to a room filled with mirrors. As he walked through, his reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following him with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught his attention. In it, he saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Alex reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Alex discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. He descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old, dusty books scattered on a table. He found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lord Ravenwood. As Alex read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lord Ravenwood appeared, his face twisted with rage. He pointed at Alex and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook, and the air filled with a chilling wind. Alex knew he had to leave immediately. Alex bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind him. He raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on him. He burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but he could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on him. Back in his apartment, Alex reviewed the photos and notes he had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. He wrote his article, revealing the dark history of Ravenwood Manor. As he finished, he felt a cold draft and heard Lord Ravenwood's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Alex knew the haunting was far from over.
In a secluded forest, shrouded in mist, lies an ancient mansion rumored to be haunted. A group of friends, Emma, Mark, and Sarah, venture into the forest one chilly evening, drawn by the allure of the mansion's dark history. As they approach the mansion, they are greeted by an imposing wrought iron gate, its hinges creaking ominously in the chilly night air. The mansion looms before them, its grandeur faded and its windows like empty eyes staring out into the darkness. Inside the mansion, the air is thick with dust and the sound of creaking floorboards echoes through the empty halls. The friends explore room after room, their footsteps muffled by faded carpets and their voices swallowed by the oppressive silence. As they delve deeper into the mansion, they uncover signs of its dark past. Forgotten rooms filled with cobweb-covered furniture, secret passages hidden behind crumbling walls, and faded portraits of long-dead residents whose eyes seem to follow their every move. As night falls and shadows deepen, the mansion comes alive with strange noises and eerie whispers. The friends feel a presence lurking in the darkness, unseen but unmistakably malevolent, its icy fingers brushing against their skin like the chill of a grave. In a desperate bid to escape the mansion's grasp, the friends race through its labyrinthine halls, their hearts pounding and their breath coming in ragged gasps. But the mansion seems to have other plans, its corridors shifting and changing before their eyes, trapping them in a nightmarish maze from which there may be no escape. Cornered in the mansion's dark heart, the friends confront the malevolent force that has plagued them since their arrival. With a final desperate act of defiance, they banish the entity back into the shadows from whence it came, freeing themselves from its grasp and escaping into the night. In a small town surrounded by dense woods, A group of friends receives an intriguing invitation to spend a weekend at a remote cabin nestled deep within the shadowed woods. Excited for an adventure, they eagerly accept the invitation, brushing off the warnings of locals who speak of strange happenings in the woods. Ignoring the growing sense of unease, they set off into the wilderness. As the friends arrive at the cabin, they are struck by its isolation, the nearest neighbor miles away, and the woods enveloping it like a fortress. Despite the tranquil surroundings, a feeling of foreboding settles over them as they step inside. The air is heavy with the scent of pine, and the only sound is the whispering of the wind through the trees. As night falls, the friends gather around a crackling fire, their laughter echoing through the stillness of the woods. But as the fire dies down, a chill descends, and strange noises begin to emanate from the darkness beyond. The friends exchange nervous glances, their senses on high alert as they listen to the eerie sounds of the night. While exploring the cabin, one of the friends stumbles upon a mysterious artifact, a weathered journal bound in leather. Intrigued, they begin to read, uncovering the journal's secrets, a tale of madness and obsession, of a previous occupant driven to madness by the shadows that lurk within the woods. As they read on, the sense of dread that hangs over the cabin intensifies. As night deepens, the friends begin to notice strange shadows moving among the trees. A flicker of movement in the corner of their eye, a rustling in the underbrush that seems to follow their every step. They try to brush it off as their imagination, but the shadows grow bolder, creeping closer and closer to the cabin. As the night wears on, the friends find themselves ensnared in a nightmare from which there seems to be no escape. The shadows grow thicker, wrapping themselves around the cabin like a cloak of darkness. They hear whispered voices in the night, their words unintelligible but undeniably menacing. Panic sets in as they realize they are not alone in the woods. With their backs against the wall, the friends make a final stand against the encroaching darkness. Armed with whatever weapons they can find, they venture out into the night, determined to confront the source of the shadows once and for all. With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through their veins, they steel themselves for the battle ahead. As the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon, the shadows begin to retreat, their grip on the forest loosening with each passing moment. The friends emerge from the darkness, battered and bruised but alive, though the horrors of the night will haunt them forever. They take solace in the knowledge that they've survived the darkness of the shadowed woods. A car rumbles down a winding road, disappearing into the dense forest. Inside, a group of friends chats nervously, excitement tinged with apprehension evident in their voices. They've heard the stories about Willow Grove, an abandoned village rumored to be haunted, but they've come seeking adventure. As they approach the outskirts of the village, a shroud of mist descends, cloaking the world in an eerie haze. The friends step out of the car and into Willow Grove, their footsteps echoing through the empty streets. The village appears frozen in time, its buildings crumbling and overgrown with ivy. Windows are shattered, doors hang off their hinges, and the air is heavy with the scent of decay. Despite the desolation, a sense of unease settles over the group as they venture further into the heart of the village. At the edge of the village stands a grand mansion, a relic of a bygone era, its windows boarded up and its once grand facade crumbling. The friends exchange nervous glances as they approach, their curiosity outweighing their fear. With trembling hands, they push open the creaking door and step inside, their hearts pounding in their chests. As the friends explore the mansion, they feel an oppressive presence weighing down on them, a sense of malevolence that seems to seep from the very walls. They hear whispers in the darkness and catch fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corners of their eyes. Fear grips them tight as they realize they're not alone in the house. As the night wears on, the friends uncover clues about the mansion's dark past. A family torn apart by tragedy, their spirits trapped within the walls for eternity. They find old photographs and newspaper clippings, piecing together the story of the family's demise. But as they delve deeper, they awaken something sinister that has been lying dormant for years. As the night progresses, the mansion comes alive with paranormal activity. Doors slam shut on their own, objects move of their own accord, and ghostly apparitions appear in the darkness. The friends huddle together, their screams echoing through the empty halls as they realize they're trapped in a nightmare from which there's no escape. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the friends make a final stand against the evil that haunts the mansion. Armed with makeshift weapons and fierce determination, they confront the ghostly apparitions that roam the halls, knowing that their survival depends on their ability to banish the darkness that lurks within. As dawn breaks, the paranormal activity subsides, and the mansion falls silent once more. The friends emerge from the darkness, battered and bruised but alive. They exchange weary smiles, knowing that they've faced their fears and emerged stronger for it. Though the scars of their ordeal will never fully heal, they take solace in the knowledge that they've conquered the darkness that once threatened to consume them.
Emma, a young writer in her late 20s, inherits an old mansion called Everwood Manor from her estranged aunt. Hoping to find inspiration for her next novel, she moves into the house. As she steps inside, she feels an unsettling chill. The house, surrounded by tall, dark trees, looks like it hasn't been lived in for years. Dust covers the furniture, and the air is thick with the scent of old wood and mildew. She feels a strange sense of foreboding, but brushes it off as nerves. On her first night, Emma struggles to sleep. The house is filled with strange noises, the creaking of floorboards, the whisper of the wind through cracks in the windows, and distant, indistinct whispers. She hears what sounds like footsteps outside her bedroom door, but when she checks, no one is there. She returns to bed, uneasy and sleep-deprived. The next day, while exploring the house, Emma discovers a locked door in the basement. Curious, she searches the house and finds an old rusty key hidden in a drawer. She uses the key to unlock the door and finds a small room filled with old furniture, cobwebs, and a large ornate mirror covered with a cloth. Emma removes the cloth from the mirror and, to her shock, sees the reflection of a young girl standing behind her. When she turns around, no one is there. The mirror begins to show disturbing images of past events in the house, including a girl being trapped and crying for help. Emma feels a chill run down her spine. Determined to find out more, Emma searches the house and finds an old diary hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace. The diary belonged to her aunt and details a tragic story of a girl named Lily who lived in the house and mysteriously disappeared. Emma realizes the ghost she saw is Lily, trapped in the mirror. Emma decides to perform a seance to communicate with Lily's spirit. She sets up candles and chants words from the diary. The room grows cold, and Lily's ghost appears, revealing that she was trapped by a dark ritual performed by Emma's aunt. Lily begs Emma to free her. Following Lily's instructions, Emma gathers the items needed to break the ritual: a locket, a piece of Lily's clothing, and a special incantation. As she performs the ritual, the house shakes violently, and a dark, malevolent spirit tries to stop her. Emma persists, chanting the incantation louder and louder. The dark spirit attacks, but Emma continues the ritual, calling out to Lily for strength. A bright light fills the room, and the dark spirit screams before dissipating into nothingness. Lily's spirit smiles gratefully at Emma before ascending into the light, finally freed. With the haunting over, the house feels lighter and more welcoming. Emma finishes her novel, inspired by Lily's story. She decides to keep Everwood Manor and transform it into a place of peace and creativity. Sitting on the porch, she feels a deep connection to the house and its history, ready for a new beginning. Evelyn, Mark, Lisa, and John arrived at Crescent Grove, a forgotten village nestled deep in the forest. The sun was setting, casting eerie shadows on the abandoned buildings. The village was said to be haunted, and the four friends had come to investigate the rumors. "This place gives me the creeps," Lisa whispered, clutching Mark's arm. "Don't worry, it's just for one night," Mark reassured her. Evelyn led the group, her curiosity piqued by the mystery. "Let's find a place to set up camp." John the skeptic laughed. "Ghosts aren't real, you'll see." They found an old inn at the center of the village and decided to make it their base for the night. The building was dusty and filled with cobwebs. As they set up their sleeping bags in the main hall, strange noises echoed through the empty corridors. "Did you hear that?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. "It's just the wind," John replied, though he didn't sound convinced. Evelyn found an old diary on a shelf. "This might tell us what happened here," she said, opening it. As Evelyn read from the diary, the friends learned about the village's dark past. The villagers had practiced forbidden rituals, summoning a malevolent spirit that eventually destroyed them. "This is creepy," Mark said, glancing around nervously. "We should leave," Lisa urged, fear in her eyes. "We need to stay and finish this," Evelyn insisted. "We have to find out if the spirit is still here." Suddenly, the air grew cold and the lights flickered. A shadowy figure appeared at the end of the hall, its eyes glowing with a sinister red light. The friends froze in terror. "Run!" Mark shouted, but the figure moved faster, blocking their exit. Evelyn held up the diary like a shield. "We need to use the ritual described here to banish it." The spirit lashed out, knocking John to the ground. Lisa screamed and Mark pulled her back, trying to protect her. With trembling hands, Evelyn and Mark gathered the materials needed for the ritual described in the diary. Lisa and John tried to hold the spirit at bay, their fear palpable. "Hurry up!" Lisa cried as the spirit advanced. "We're almost ready," Evelyn said, her voice shaking. "Mark, light the candles." Mark lit the candles, forming a protective circle. Evelyn began to chant the incantation from the diary, her voice growing stronger with each word. The spirit roared in fury, trying to break through the protective circle. Evelyn continued to chant, her voice now steady and commanding. The air crackled with energy as the spirit's form began to waver. "Keep going," Mark urged, holding Lisa close. John, recovering from the spirit's attack, joined in the chant. The spirit let out a deafening scream as it was forced back. With one final word, Evelyn completed the ritual. The spirit dissolved into the air, leaving a deafening silence behind. The friends collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a peaceful silence. "We did it," Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's get out of here," Lisa urged, her eyes still wide with fear. They gathered their things and left the inn, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. As they walked away from Crescent Grove, they felt a sense of triumph and relief. "Let's never do this again," John said, managing a weak smile. As they walked away from the village, the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the forest. The village behind them was now just a distant memory, a place they would never forget but never return to. "Let's make a pact," Evelyn said, stopping to look at her friends. "We never speak of this again." "Agreed," Mark, Lisa, and John said in unison. They walked on, the past behind them and the future ahead, grateful to have survived the haunting of Crescent Grove.
As the sun sets, casting a crimson glow over the horizon, an imposing mansion stands silent and forsaken. Its once grand facade now weathered and covered in ivy, the mansion casts eerie shadows across the overgrown lawn, hinting at the secrets it holds within. In the neglected garden surrounding the mansion, tangled bushes and wilted flowers paint a haunting picture. Moonlight filters through the twisted branches of the trees, casting an ethereal glow upon patches of the eerie landscape, where shadows seem to dance in silent reverie. On the grand front porch of the mansion, once a beacon of opulence, now lies cracked and crumbling under the weight of time. Moonlight casts long shadows across the faded steps, adding to the sense of abandonment that permeates the air. Within the mansion's foyer, the dim light of dusty chandeliers flickers weakly, casting eerie shadows upon the tattered wallpaper. Moonlight filters through broken windows, illuminating cobweb-covered furniture that sits frozen in time, a silent witness to the mansion's descent into decay. In the cavernous ballroom of the mansion, the once glamorous dance floor now rots beneath neglect. Faded tapestries hang from the walls like forgotten memories, while moonlight streams through cracked skylights, casting ghostly patterns upon the abandoned space, as if the echoes of bygone celebrations still linger in the air. Within the mansion's library, the scent of dust hangs heavy in the air, mingling with the musty aroma of aging books. Tattered armchairs sit among shelves of ancient tomes, while moonlight filters through stained glass windows, casting colorful shadows upon the worn carpet that bears the weight of forgotten knowledge. In the dilapidated dining hall of the mansion, a long table lies buried beneath layers of cobwebs and neglect. Overturned chairs litter the floor, while moonlight streams through broken windows, casting an ethereal glow upon the decaying scene, where echoes of feasts long past still resonate in the silent air. Within the mansion's study, Dusty bookshelves groan under the weight of forgotten knowledge, while forgotten artifacts gather dust in every corner. Moonlight filters weakly through dusty windows, casting long shadows upon the stacks of papers and abandoned furniture that clutter the room, where the ghosts of scholarly pursuits still linger in the darkness. In a desolate bedroom of the mansion, the once grand bed frame now sags under the weight of time, its faded curtains hanging limply from rusted rods. Moonlight filters weakly through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows upon the peeling walls, where whispers of dreams long forgotten still echo in the silent night. As dawn breaks over this mansion's overgrown backyard, the soft light of morning bathes the decaying structures in an ethereal glow. Mist rises from the damp earth, shrouding the forgotten corners of the estate in a veil of mystery, where the spirits of the past find solace in the dawn of a new day.
In a secluded village surrounded by dense forests, there was a legend of the Whispering Woods, where the trees whispered secrets and shadows danced in the moonlight. A group of friends, led by Sarah, ventured into the Whispering Woods, drawn by the allure of the mysterious tales. They entered with trepidation, their hearts pounding with excitement and fear. As they delved deeper into the woods, the air grew thick with an unnatural chill, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets in a language unknown. Sarah led the group onward, her determination masking her growing unease. They stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in an ethereal glow, where ghostly figures danced in the moonlight, their laughter echoing eerily through the woods. Sarah hesitated, sensing danger lurking in the shadows. As they tried to leave, the forest seemed to shift around them, trapping them in a nightmarish maze of twisting paths and tangled roots. Panic set in as they realized they were lost in the Whispering Woods. In the heart of the forest, they encountered an ancient guardian, a towering figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. Sarah knew they had trespassed into a realm beyond their understanding. With courage born of desperation, Sarah and her friends made a final dash for freedom, racing through the twisting paths as the guardian's laughter echoed behind them. At last, they emerged from the Whispering Woods, shaken but alive.
Blackwood Manor had long been abandoned and forgotten, standing as a dark silhouette against the evening sky. On a chilly, misty night, Lily, a young and curious journalist, arrived to uncover the truth behind the rumors of hauntings. She parked her car at the rusted gates, feeling a mixture of excitement and dread. The mansion's windows stared back at her like soulless eyes. Lily pushed open the creaking door of Blackwood Manor. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. She turned on her flashlight, revealing a grand but dilapidated foyer. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and old furniture lay covered in white sheets. Her footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space as she ventured further inside. As Lily explored the mansion, she felt an icy breeze pass by her. Turning around, she saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. The figure disappeared as quickly as it appeared, leaving her heart pounding. Determined to uncover more, she made her way to the library, hoping to find records of the mansion's history. In the library, Lily found rows of dusty old books. As she searched through them, she heard whispers and the sound of pages turning by themselves. She discovered an old journal belonging to the mansion's original owner, Lady Blackwood. The entry spoke of dark rituals and a curse that had been placed on the house and its inhabitants. Lily's exploration led her to a room filled with mirrors. As she walked through, her reflection seemed to move on its own, eyes following her with an unsettling intensity. One mirror in particular caught her attention. In it, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman crying, her eyes pleading for help. Lily reached out to touch the mirror, but the image vanished. Lily discovered a hidden door behind a tattered curtain in the study. She descended the creaky stairs into a dark, musty basement. The room was filled with strange symbols painted on the walls and old dusty books scattered on a table. She found a journal detailing the dark rituals and a curse placed on the house by Lady Blackwood. As Lily read the journal, the basement grew colder. A ghostly figure of Lady Blackwood appeared, her face twisted with rage. She pointed at Lily and screamed, "You should not have come here!" The walls shook and the air filled with a chilling wind. Lily knew she had to leave immediately. Lily bolted up the stairs, the spirit's screams echoing behind her. She raced through the mansion, the walls seeming to close in on her. She burst through the front door and into the night, gasping for breath. The house stood silent and still, but she could feel the weight of its curse pressing down on her. Back in her apartment, Lily reviewed the photos and notes she had taken. The evidence of the haunting was undeniable. She wrote her article, revealing the dark history of Blackwood Manor. As she finished, she felt a cold draft and heard Lady Blackwood's voice whisper, "You cannot escape the curse." Lily knew the haunting was far from over. On a foggy autumn evening, four friends, Lucy, Tom, Ava, and Ben, stand before Greystone Manor, an abandoned mansion known for its haunted past. Ben, always the thrill-seeker, dares the group to spend the night inside. With a mix of nervousness and excitement, they agree, pushing open the creaky iron gate and stepping onto the overgrown path leading to the mansion. The front door groans loudly as they push it open, revealing a dark, musty foyer. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling, and a thick layer of dust covers everything. The air smells of mold and decay. They switch on their flashlights, casting long shadows on the peeling wallpaper as they step inside, the door slamming shut behind them. They decide to explore and find themselves in a grand library, filled with old leather-bound books. A large, dusty chandelier hangs from the ceiling, and an ancient fireplace sits cold and empty. Lucy notices a book lying open on a table, its pages filled with strange symbols. As she touches it, the chandelier above them begins to sway. A sudden cold breeze blows through the room, extinguishing their flashlights. In the darkness, they hear faint whispers and the soft sound of footsteps. Panic sets in as they fumble to turn their flashlights back on, only to see a shadowy figure disappear into the next room. They follow the figure into the kitchen where old rusted appliances and broken dishes litter the floor. The air is colder here and the feeling of being watched intensifies. Ava opens a cupboard and a pair of ghostly eyes stare back at her. She screams and the cupboard door slams shut on its own. In the hallway, they find a door leading to the basement. Ben suggests going down, but Lucy hesitates. The others convince her, and they slowly descend the creaky wooden stairs. The basement is pitch dark and the air is damp and chilly. They feel an overwhelming sense of dread. In the basement, they find an old wooden table with strange markings. A low growl resonates through the room, and they see glowing red eyes staring at them from the far corner. Panic-stricken, they scramble back up the stairs as the growling grows louder. Desperate to leave, they race towards the front door. The house seems to come alive, with doors slamming and ghostly wails echoing through the halls. They struggle to open the front door, finally bursting out into the cold night air. The mansion falls silent behind them. Outside, they collapse into the grass, gasping for breath. The mansion looms dark and silent behind them. They vow never to return, each one haunted by the night's events. The night air is cold, but they feel a sense of relief and safety. Back at their homes, the friends try to return to normal life. But each night, they are haunted by nightmares of the ghostly eyes and the whispers in the dark. The memories of that night remain vivid, and they realize that some horrors can never be forgotten. An old abandoned cabin stands alone in the heart of a dense forest. The wooden walls are rotting, and the windows are broken, giving the place a forlorn look. Tall, menacing trees surround the cabin, their long shadows stretching as the sun begins to set. Inside the cabin, the living room is a relic of the past, covered in dust and cobwebs. An old moth-eaten sofa sits in the center of the room, facing a fireplace with burnt logs. A single lantern flickers, casting eerie shadows on the walls, hinting at the secrets the cabin holds. The kitchen is in complete disrepair, with broken cabinets and rusted appliances. Moonlight filters through a cracked window, casting a pale glow on an old blood-stained knife lying on the counter. The air is thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. A narrow path winds through the dark forest, with twisted tree branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The ground is littered with fallen leaves, and an eerie mist rises from the forest floor, adding to the sense of unease that hangs in the air. In a clearing deep within the forest, the full moon illuminates an ancient stone altar. The altar is covered in moss and vines, and strange symbols are carved into the stone, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The air is thick with an otherworldly presence, making the skin crawl. A dark, fast-flowing river cuts through the forest, its black waters reflecting the moonlight. A rickety wooden bridge spans the river, creaking ominously with each gust of wind. The sound of the rushing water adds to the sense of isolation and dread. The basement of the cabin is dark and damp, with stone walls covered in moss. Rusted chains hang from the ceiling, swaying slightly in the draft. The floor is littered with broken bottles and old bones, remnants of a sinister past. A hidden room in the basement, revealed by a secret door, is filled with ancient books and strange artifacts. A large, dusty mirror dominates the room, reflecting an eerie glow. The air is thick with the scent of old parchment and something darker, more malevolent. As dawn breaks, the edge of the forest is bathed in a soft, golden light. The shadows recede, revealing the cabin in the distance. Birds begin to sing, their cheerful notes bringing a sense of normalcy back to the eerie setting, but the haunting memories of the night linger. In the morning light, the abandoned cabin appears less menacing, but still forlorn. The broken windows and overgrown yard are clearly visible, and a sense of unease still lingers in the air. The events of the night have left their mark, a reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed. The old house stood at the end of the lonely street, its windows shattered and its wooden walls weathered by time. Sarah had heard stories about the house since she was a child. It was said to be haunted, a place where shadows whispered secrets and the air was thick with dread. Determined to prove it was all just a myth, she decided to spend the night there. As Sarah pushed open the creaking door, the musty smell of decay hit her. The interior was dark, with only the faintest light filtering through the grimy windows. She stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under her weight. Every corner seemed to be alive with whispers, just out of reach. Sarah moved cautiously into the living room. The furniture was covered in dust and cobwebs draped from the ceiling. An old grandfather clock stood against the wall, its hands frozen at midnight. As she looked around, she heard a faint whispering, like someone speaking from the shadows. On the wall hung a portrait of a stern-looking man. His eyes seemed to follow Sarah as she moved. She felt a chill run down her spine. The whispers grew louder, and for a moment she thought she saw the man's eyes blink. She stepped back in fear, her heart racing. Sarah found herself drawn to a door partially hidden behind a tattered curtain. She hesitated before pulling it open, revealing a set of stairs leading down into the darkness. The whispers were clearer now, urging her to descend. With trembling hands, she held her flashlight and began her descent. The basement was cold and damp, the walls lined with old shelves holding dusty jars and forgotten relics. The whispers were louder here, almost tangible. Sarah felt a presence behind her and spun around but saw nothing. Suddenly, an old radio crackled to life, playing a haunting lullaby. Sarah's flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, she felt something brush against her arm. She backed away, stumbling over an old trunk. The whispers were deafening now. She managed to open the trunk, revealing an old diary. The pages told the story of a man who had lost his family and descended into madness, cursing the house and anyone who entered. Realizing the danger, Sarah grabbed the diary and rushed up the stairs. The house seemed to come alive, the whispers turning into screams. Doors slammed shut around her, and the air grew colder. She reached the front door and burst out into the night, the whispers fading behind her. Outside, Sarah collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. She looked back at the house, now silent and still. She knew she could never explain what happened, but she had the diary as proof. As she walked away, she heard one last whisper in the wind, promising that the shadows would always be watching. Emily, a young historian, inherited the sprawling and ancient Ravenwood Manor from her eccentric great-uncle. She, along with her friends Jack and Lucy, arrived on a cloudy afternoon. The mansion was nestled deep in the woods, its grandeur overshadowed by an eerie silence. "This place is massive," Jack remarked, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "More like massively creepy," Lucy added, shivering as they crossed the threshold. Emily clutched the heavy iron key, a sense of foreboding settling in. "Let's explore and get settled in." Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of dusty rooms, antique furniture, and forgotten relics. They marveled at the grand staircase, the chandeliers draped in cobwebs, and the eerie portraits of ancestors long gone. This place must have so many stories, Emily said, running her fingers over an old book on a shelf. In the attic, they discovered a locked chest. After some effort, they managed to pry it open, revealing a collection of old diaries and a peculiar-looking amulet. "What's this?" Lucy asked, holding up the amulet. It glowed faintly in the dim light. That night, they settled into their rooms. The manor was deathly silent, save for the occasional creak of the wooden beams. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As she drifted off to sleep, she was jolted awake by the sound of whispering voices. She sat up, heart pounding, and saw a shadow move across her room. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. The whispering ceased and the room fell silent once more. Emily lay back down, but sleep eluded her. The next day, Emily and her friends decided to delve into the diaries they found in the attic. The journals belonged to various members of the Ravenwood family, detailing strange occurrences and ghostly sightings over the centuries. "Listen to this," Emily said, reading aloud. "Great-Uncle Henry wrote about a family curse and mentions the amulet. It's supposed to protect the bearer from evil spirits." Jack frowned. "That explains the creepy vibes we've been getting." They continued reading, piecing together the dark history of the Ravenwood family and their connection to the supernatural. While exploring the basement, they found a hidden door behind a stack of old crates. The air was thick with a musty odor as they ventured inside, discovering an old ritual chamber filled with strange symbols and artifacts. "This must be where they conducted their rituals," Jack said, examining the symbols etched into the walls. Emily found a dusty book on a pedestal. "It's a book of spells and rituals. This might help us understand what's going on." As they examined the room, they heard a low growl emanating from the darkness. That night, the manor was alive with supernatural activity. Doors slammed, lights flickered, and ghostly apparitions roamed the hallways. The friends huddled together in the living room, fear gripping them. "We need to get out of here," Lucy said, her voice shaking. But as they tried to leave, the front door wouldn't budge. It was as if the house itself was trapping them inside. "We're stuck," Jack said, panic in his eyes. "What do we do now?" Emily clutched the amulet. "We have to find a way to break the curse." In the library, Emily found the banishment ritual in the book they discovered. As she began to recite the incantation, the temperature dropped, and a dark, menacing figure appeared before them. "You cannot banish me," it hissed, its form shifting and flickering. Emily's voice wavered, but she continued the ritual. The figure screamed in rage, its form destabilizing. "Keep going, Emily," Jack urged. The figure lunged at them, but a bright light emanated from the amulet, pushing it back. Emily completed the ritual and the figure disintegrated into a cloud of dark mist. The manor fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The ghostly apparitions vanished, and the friends breathed a sigh of relief. "We did it," Lucy said, tears of relief in her eyes. As they prepared to leave, they noticed a portrait of Great-Uncle Henry smiling down at them. Emily felt a sense of closure, knowing they had freed the manor from its curse. "Let's get out of here," Jack said. They locked the manor and drove away, leaving the horrors of Ravenwood Manor behind. Back in their hometown, life slowly returned to normal. But Emily couldn't forget what happened. One night, she found the old amulet on her bedside table, even though she had left it at the manor. Her heart raced as she picked it up. The room grew cold, and she heard a familiar whisper. "Welcome back," a voice said behind her. Emily spun around to see the dark figure from the manor, its eyes glowing with malevolence. "You can never escape Ravenwood Manor," it said, reaching out for her. Emily screamed as the room plunged into darkness. Blackwood Manor stood isolated at the edge of a dense forest, its Gothic architecture looming ominously against the darkening sky. Emily, a young journalist, arrived to investigate the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the manor for decades. Determined to uncover the truth, she parked her car and approached the grand, yet decaying front doors. As Emily stepped inside, the door creaked loudly, echoing through the vast, dimly lit hall. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed by her presence. The air was cold and an unsettling silence enveloped her. She turned on her flashlight, illuminating the grand staircase and the darkened corners of the hall. Emily walked into the living room, where old furniture lay shrouded in white sheets. A large fireplace dominated one wall, with an ornate mirror hanging above it. She felt a chill as she noticed a faint figure reflected in the mirror. But when she turned, the room was empty. The only sound was the faint ticking of an old grandfather clock. Emily found a long hallway lined with portraits of the Blackwood family. The eyes of the painted figures seemed to follow her as she walked. One portrait, in particular, caught her attention. A stern-looking woman with piercing eyes. Suddenly, Emily felt a cold hand on her shoulder. But when she turned around, there was no one there. The library was filled with ancient books and heavy wooden furniture. Emily felt drawn to an old leather-bound journal on a desk. As she opened it, she found entries detailing strange rituals and dark secrets of the Blackwood family. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and the whispers of unseen figures filled the air. Emily discovered a hidden door leading to the basement. As she descended the creaking stairs, the air grew colder and the darkness thicker. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the damp walls. She heard distant, echoing whispers and the faint sound of footsteps following her. At the bottom of the stairs, Emily found a room filled with strange symbols and an altar. The air was thick with the scent of incense and decay. She realized this was where the Blackwood family had conducted their dark rituals. As she explored, she heard a low, menacing chant and felt an oppressive presence closing in on her. Emily's flashlight died, plunging her into darkness. The chanting grew louder, and ghostly figures emerged from the shadows. She felt a cold hand grip her arm, pulling her towards the altar. Summoning her courage, she broke free and ran up the stairs, the spirit's wails echoing behind her. Emily burst out of Blackwood Manor, gasping for breath. The night was still and silent, a stark contrast to the horrors inside. Clutching the journal, she vowed to expose the truth about the Blackwood family. As she walked away, she glanced back one last time, seeing the faint outline of a figure watching her from an upstairs window.
4 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, and Lily, stood outside an old, abandoned house on a dare. The house was infamous in their town for being haunted, but they decided to spend the night there to prove their bravery. They pushed open the rusty gate and walked to the front door, which creaked loudly as they opened it. Inside, the house was dark and musty, with broken furniture and cobwebs everywhere. In the living room, they saw an old, dusty couch and a broken chandelier. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew through the room, making them shiver. They heard a faint whisper, but couldn't tell where it came from. They decided to explore upstairs. The wooden stairs creaked with every step. At the top, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. They heard a strange scratching sound coming from one of the rooms. They opened the door to the room and saw a rocking chair moving on its own. The temperature dropped suddenly, and they saw the faint outline of a ghostly figure in the corner. The figure whispered, "Leave this place." Panicking, they ran downstairs and found a door leading to the basement. Despite their fear, they decided to investigate. The basement was even colder and darker. They found strange symbols on the walls and old, dusty furniture. In the basement, they heard footsteps behind them. Turning around, they saw the ghostly figure again, now clearer and more menacing. The ghost raised its hand, and the friends felt an icy wind pushing them towards the stairs. Screaming, they ran up the stairs and out of the house, the door slamming shut behind them. They didn't stop running until they were far from the house. They vowed never to return and to never speak of what they had seen.